GamingBolt presents 15 video game heroes so bland they deserve to become NPCs instead. Video games aren't often well regarded for their literary merit. While some might be capable of eliciting an emotional response or make us fall in love with a character, for the most part they're there to provide fun and interesting worlds for us to explore. There are, however, a great many games that fail to give us characters that are even remotely interesting or relatable. Characters so bland they barely deserve a story, and would be adequately utilised if they were NPCs instead. Desmond Miles, Assassin's Creed. Desmond Miles is the protagonist for many of the Assassin's Creed games, and is literally an empty vessel. Throughout the series, his consciousness is poured into the memories of his assassin heritage, where he treks around the medieval, Renaissance and colonial eras, stabbing people in the face. He is, however, without much of his own personality. His actions are almost always in service of moving the game forward, and he has no real personal connections to give his struggle any emotional stakes. AIDEN Pierce, Watch Dogs. AIDEN Pierce is a classic revenge story hero. A criminal with a code, he hacks to siphon money from people's bank accounts. After this, Watchdog takes revenge as a license for anything, and AIDEN guns, hacks and blows his way through the rest of the game looking for closure. It's the same revenge plot as any other, and AIDEN Pierce does nothing to shake up the stale trope. Ethan Winters, Resident Evil 7. The protagonist of Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, may as well be an android for all the personality he contains. Outside of his marriage to Mia, there are almost no details about him, and dialogue in the game doesn't clear up the massive gaps in his past as well as his personality. Ethan's expressions are mostly of surprise and horror as he's torn apart or maimed by the mansion's many terrible residents, and he could just as easily be a victim in the story as its hero. Connor KENWAY, Assassin's Creed 3. Born Raton Hackathon, Connor KENWAY had potential to infuse a different style of fighting than was typical of Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. Unfortunately, he adopts this style of fighting common to the assassins of the series. In this way, he avoids his narrow brush with being interesting, and instead falls in line with all of his other hooded killer companions. James Heller, Prototype 2. James Heller is a classic science experiment gone wrong. A former US Marine sergeant, Heller is infected with a blacklight virus and gains extraordinary and exceptionally violent powers. He then goes on a rampage, killing contractors left and right as he murders his way to his maker named Mercer. As he does this, James does little in the way of establishing a personality, and instead mostly growls at everyone he meets. Jack Cooper, Titanfall 2. While Titanfall 2's gunplay and balance may be some of the best on the market, Respawn Entertainment's skill with character design is far from perfect. Jack Cooper, the protagonist of Titanfall 2, is a lowly rifleman, thrust into the seat of a Titan by circumstance rather than experience. For the rest of the campaign, Jack maintains a steady level of generic platitude, making sure never to say or do anything that might make him stand out as someone who's even a little interesting. Jake Conway, Ride to Hell Retribution. Jake Conway is a classic delusional revenge murderer. Enraged by the death of his little brother, Jake kills his way through Ride to Hell. Jake, like all aspects of Ride to Hell, is a simple nightmare of a creation. He's unpleasant, poorly modelled, expressionless, and a downright pain to be around. He might be an amusing NPC, but as a player character, he's simply the worst. Jim Payton, Lost Planet 3. Jim Payton is another classic addition to the long list of generic action heroes. Stranded on EDN 3 when his ship crash lands, Jim must fight his way through a hostile and troubling planet in order to keep his wife and child safe. On his deathbed, like anyone who's spent their life murdering their way through a hellscape to survive, Jim regrets the violence of his past and wishes his granddaughter could have a safe place to live. Nathan Hale, Resistance. Strong, intelligent, brave, yet emotionally unavailable. Nathan Hale is the hard man who makes hard choices in the Resistance series. He's about as generic as it comes in a military shooter. He comes from an adopted family, having never known his real parents, And after being infected with the Chimera virus, he finally succumbs, telling his comrades this is just the beginning, and making sure there's plenty of room for sequels, even if he won't be alive to see them. Sev, Killzone 2. Sev's parents were killed in the invasion of Vetka, so like any patriotic young man, he enlisted so he could go kill Helghast people's parents on Helghast. Rising through the ranks on account of his intelligence and tactical skill, Sev enters the Killzone series as a near-carbon copy of the Killzone's protagonist, Jan Templar. He's a strong, competent field commander, but don't worry, he does have a soft side. He's plagued by nightmares about his family's death, so he must have a deep inner conflict raging somewhere behind his chiseled jaw. Isaac Clarke, Dead Space. Isaac Clarke is mostly just the hapless victim of a series of truly horrific events. Driven through the game by the voice of his dead girlfriend, Isaac is a classic man on a mission to save his love. Tragically, this doesn't work out, and it's revealed that the woman whose voice has kept him going all this time actually committed suicide before the game even began. Isaac doesn't let this stop him though, and power soars his way through the next 2 games, stoically killing thousands of zombies along the way. Shane Carpenter, HAZE. Shane Carpenter is just a soldier trying to do good in a world hell-bent on being bad. He was born in a time where if he didn't try to make things better, nobody would. Like any military shooter protagonist, Shane is an equal mix of pumped up to go kill people and compassionate towards the men under his command. Despite the game's opening referring to the circumstances of his birth, Shane's personal life is never explored, and it's safe to assume there's not much back there. Jason Brody, Far Cry 3. Jason is a classic, unlikable spring break horror victim turned murder aficionado. He grew up in Los Angeles, had good grades, but he was a middle child and he wanted more out of life. In the spirit of well-off Californian 20-somethings, Brody starts skydiving, replacing emotional maturity with adrenaline rushes. This pays off for him though, because as his friends are butchered and enslaved, Brody's able to rise above his childish beginnings and become a man through the time-honored method of killing everyone on Rook Island. Cole McGrath, Infamous. McGrath was just a normal guy. He didn't want any of this. In fact, he took his bike courier gig to piss off his parents for being such normal, boring people like himself. But then when a bomb destroys half of Empire City and unlocks his powers, he's thrust into a world of great responsibility. It's an old and tired story for a superhero tale, and Cole brings very little to the table that wasn't already there. Starkiller, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Like any good Star Wars character, Galen Marek was an orphan, but unlike many great Star Wars villains, there isn't much going on for him. Even his name is kinda lame. In a setting so filled with great villains, it's no surprise that every once in a while they're a flop. Starkiller lacks both personality and a strong enough sense of style to carry his presence through sheer charisma alone, and he feels more like the assassin you should fight as a boss than someone worth playing as. And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily, so make sure you don't miss them by subscribing. We appreciate your support, and we thank you for checking us out.